Hello everyone, welcome back to the Arsenal Pass YouTube channel with a very special video with a good friend of mine, Mr. Jasin Long, recent calling top 8 competitor from the Christchurch calling, Mr. Slippy himself, or 1/3 of the Slippy crew, as I'm calling you. Jasin, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for the intro. And it's actually top 4, so just remember that one
Oh,
before you.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's all good. It's all good. We got you got Sloppy here out of the Slippy crew, Slippy, Sloppy, and Slappy.
Is Isaac Slappy?
Yes, he is.
Right, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, congratulations to you and to the crew on the great performance over the weekend in Christchurch. Yourself making top 4, the other two both making cash. Awesome achievement on a deck. We're going to talk about that deck in this deck tech, go through kind of breaking it down, talk about some of the philosophy, why you guys played it, and all those good things. But first of all, what are the strengths of Slip Through the Cracks, and why should people think about playing him in, I wouldn't say just this current meta, there's also about to be a change in the meta with things like Viscerai hitting Living Legend. So just in general, what are the strengths of Arakni Slip Through the Cracks?
Oh, the biggest strength is just the unconditional go again. Like the fact that you can do that into, say, Enigma just means that I think it's by far and away the best assassin into Enigma, because you just don't get bricked as often at all. Your deck is just so streamlined and smooth against them. You're always pushing damage and doing awkward things into them. So that was actually the main reason that we liked it, was because it was better into Enigma
Yeah.
than most of the other decks. And we can talk about some of the card choices as to why we didn't hedge more into Enigma, because we didn't felt we to with the deck. But that's the main reason. And then it's got some other cool stuff, like obviously the Toxicity Kiss, and it's the best deck to do Toxicity Kiss, which we'll talk about later as well.
Yeah. What about weaknesses? Why would you avoid playing Arakni Slip Through the Cracks, or why should people maybe, if their local meta is looking a certain way, why should they not take it into battle?
Pretty bad into other assassins. Giving them go against pretty bad. It's not as bad as you think, but it is not great. Like, Nu is very hard to win. But you got a game plan into them. You got game into them. Arachne Marionette's the same. Like, it's not a great matchup, but it's
Yeah.
still perfectly playable. And Azuri, I've never played it, but I imagine that seems to be terrible as well. So if you got assassins in your meta, I probably wouldn't play it. Other stuff it's not great into. Warrior's not a bit sketchy. You don't have too many D reacts, so you struggle against their attack reacts, and if you get like a Dawnblade counters against you, it's pretty bad. Guardians have been okay. I think like Bravo and Giles maybe not great depending on the lists, but stuff like Victor, Victor is interestingly not that bad, because they don't run that many reacts, so a lot of your like minus cards are on, which is quite interesting. Other stuff it's not great into. I mean, rune blades are a bit coin flippy. Like Viscerai is kind of, you can win some games, but some games you just can't win.
Yeah.
So there's certainly not that, there's a few pluses and minuses. Syndra, I might talk about that a little bit more later, but it's a very interesting matchup too, and you have to play the deck the right way. We did struggle into that for a long time, but we did sort of come up with a game plan that we were pretty happy with that later on.
Cool. All right, we'll get into all those things. You talked about Viscerai just then. I guess one quick question before we get into the deck list is, Viscerai's hitting LL. That sounds like it's probably good for Arakni Slip Through the Cracks, as long as all the Warriors and Guardians don't rise up because of that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what's holding some other decks back. If Viscerai's holding some other decks back that are bad for it, then it's not great. I mean, yeah, it's a 50-50 matchup at best. It's not terrible. It's not great. You definitely have game into them, so it's kind of a depending on what other stuff comes through because of it.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's get into the deck list. I'm going to throw the deck list up for those on screen to kind of take a bit of a look at it. And then what we're going to do is we're actually just going to break down, Jason's kindly for us put together kind of like the cores and the different parts of this deck and what makes it tick, so we can break it down a bit easy and talk about the different packages within this deck. Why don't we go ahead, Jason, start with the equipment. Talk to me about, I guess, just some of the decisions with the equipment. I guess the ones that stand out for me is obviously just playing the claves. You don't rely on any other daggers like a lot of other decks or other assassins might. So talk to me about, I guess, the equipment overall and the decisions there, and particularly those claves.
Yeah, so the claves, I guess one of the things we wanted to do with the deck, and we kind of decided sort of relatively early on was if your deck is like really into marking the opponent, you're probably better off playing something like Arakni Marionette. You do
Mm.
get a lot more value out of the mark. You get +1 on all your stealths. You get the go again triggers, and you're triggering your hat every turn. But what we really wanted to do was just try and play the really good mark cards. So we're playing two claves. We're playing all the good on hit mark stuff. Your swap card, which is take up the mantle. You've got your helm to get the one off value as well. And that's basically it. So that the main idea was to try and just use it for really good stuff. Oh, sorry, I do have Mark of the Black Widow red, which is a little bit of a late hit as well. But
Mm.
very very small amount of stuff. But what that means is you need both claves, and you flick them when you need them to turn on those effects, and that's kind of your way of marking them. You don't do it any other way. Mask is really interesting. So it's in some matchups it's kind of just like a you roll the dice and see if you hit good, and it can be really good. There's some one-off cards like the Nurse Trap in the deck that help with that. But overall, it's kind of just a pretty good card. A lot of the time, it gives you it gives you 5 value sometimes.
Mm.
Sometimes you get the on hit, which allows you to do bonds and things like that. So it's just a really good card. Black Tick versus Snappies. Basically black text in there for when you need to prevent the on hits from like leave no witness into other assassins or other just breakpoint effects against your Syndras. It's really good
Mm.
because you sometimes do just get to recur them with like leave no witnesses multiple times off codex and things. So you can kind of get extra value out of it there too. But sometimes you just need the guaranteed go again from Snappies into those control matchups, like especially Enigma where they've got auras and things floating around you may not hit, and you just need the go again sometimes to really trigger that. 3 Widow Equips as well in there. We normally swap the helm out for the as by default, so into Viscerai and the other Rune Blades, we'll take the helm out. The helm is good, but Tunic's just ridiculous, so you
Yeah.
leave it in, and then you chuck the other 3 in when you're playing into your Kanos and other matchups. Verdance, you can probably run 2. I think we would take Tunic out for the other Widow over Tunic as well.
It's so interesting. I think the mask, right, of Deceit. It's how often would you say you are trying to set it up versus so how often are you purposely marking them to set up that play versus kind of just taking the dice roll? Like, does it depend on the matchup? Does it depend on kind of the context of your hand? Or are you often trying to play in certain matchups to specific kind of chaos agent states?
I think you don't often have the luxury of being able to do that. Sometimes you often want to mark to play mantle,
Mm.
and so when you mark to play mantle, you're probably going to clear it on that turn because you're going to go into something ridiculous like bonds, which we'll get to. But so particularly in Syndra, we actually were testing for a long time Arcanite Skullcat in the head to get an extra block. And really against Syndra, it's just a 2 block there to block a
Yeah. Okay.
breakpoint, prevent the mask trigger. But in some other matchups, like the controller, the slower matchups, yeah, you can try and set it up. We normally do. We'll just roll it randomly. Like most matches, I'd say like more than 50% of the matches would be rolled randomly. But you do just do it on a situation where it doesn't actually matter really what you get.
Mm.
And any of normally, as long as none of them are bricking your hand, you're probably okay. I rolled it. I rolled it once in the tournament, and I did get the number 6 brick, which was pretty sad. But that only happened once, so I'll just keep doing it.
Fair enough. He's a brute player at heart. Let's talk about the core of the deck, as you call it, and we'll bring this kind of next group of cards up, which includes your just attack actions, really. Your stealth attack actions. You've got Infiltrate, you've got Art of Desire Body, you've got Mark of the Black Widow, Infect, and Pick to Pieces. Why these attacks? What is so special? Like, this is the core of the deck, as you said. What makes these the core?
So I think these ones all often have an on hit that's often worth 2 points or sometimes more. So for instance, Infiltrate, it's often worth a card against Syndra. You can pretty much you can play most of their cards off the top of their deck because a lot of them are just red 0 costs. Art of Desire Body, again, absolutely amazing into Syndra. You're pretty much guaranteed to draw a card, gain a life. In some matchups, it's just insane. Mark of the Black Widow does a similar thing a lot of the time. Like it's a really relevant on hit. Again, you don't trigger it all the time, but it just has the ability to be worth almost an entire card in and of itself. Infect, it's worth 5 damage basically with the on hit. The Blood Rot is so amazing and stuff like Enigma as well. really like can really affect their turns if they're trying to set up a Moraga, something like that. And then pick to pieces. We did actually have pick to pieces in the sideboard for a while, but you really want to be trying to play 27 stealth into every matchup, so you don't really have that many sideboard slots for it. So we kind of settled on, I think it's 30 in the end, stealth in the deck, with some one of those being sided out essentially in a matchup to fit another one in, or leaving the core 15 in and then just siding in a couple from the sideboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. They'll add extra value on it.
Makes sense. There's a couple of texts that, I wouldn't say, not that I was surprised to not see them, but I did wonder if they were kind of close to cutting, the chocolate block had you tested them. And those were Malign and Pain in the Backside. Pain in the Backside, I think, one that we've seen from a lot of other Assassin builds, but not on yours.
Yeah, so Pain in the Backside is interesting. We did have it in the lists for a while, but you actually run out of room because you really need to fit 27 stealth and 15 attack reacts in the deck, or the deck just like kind of doesn't really function, and that doesn't really leave a lot of room to fit other things. So you got Codex in there, you got Leave No Witness, you got CNC, you've got some defense reacts if you want to put them in. So essentially what we typically would be doing with the deck is only really sideboarding 6 cards in each matchup, and so into matchups like Enigma, where it probably would shine somewhat the most because you want an extra go again effect to go a bit wider. There's just not enough room. Push the point is just way better because you just want to be flicking daggers to clear auras is way better than an on-hit aura. They're just going to block that for 3. So that was the main reason. There's not really enough room, and we did not want to play less than 15 attack reacts or 27 stealth. You can cut some stuff like Orb Weaver Spinneret maybe and drop that down, but that card's also just absolutely insane as well. So good. So there's just not enough room. That's really what it comes down to.
Makes sense.
Malign is an interesting one. So we did have Malign in the sideboard, but we just didn't think we needed it. Like you only need it really into Enigma. And we just felt that our matchup was good enough without it, so we just didn't have it in the sideboard. I mean, if you've got a really heavy Enigma game, I think you probably put that in and it adds a few more points, and it just makes it even harder for them to get over you. But we just felt the matchup was good enough.
Fair. I want to talk about this defense hate package that you have, and I was the victim of this defense hate package when I played against Koi on round 8, fighting for my life in that event, and I got back-to-back backstabs and back-to-back command and conquers with the defense reaction sitting in Arsenal, which was nice and fun. So I guess, talk to me just quickly about, it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess, 3 backstab, 3 command and conquer, but why is it so effective in this deck?
Yeah, so we actually had Isolate in there originally in the backstab slot, but we were speaking with Ben Dodd a bit about the deck, and he was like, "No, you should just be playing backstab because it just means that they can't play defense reacts on those turns, and even Syndra's running 9 defense reacts. There's so many defense reacts running around like now at the moment that you just go. I think in the tournament multiple turns, I would just pitch 2 reds and play CNC and just do that multiple turns in a row, and eventually they either just have to get rid of their defense react in the arsenal and try and play out, or they've got to just try and do something awkward like pitch the defense react. There's all these weird lines that it puts into play. Yeah, they just brick out, and that's actually what we do into Syndra as well a lot of the time. So that matchup's probably the most interesting because they run 9D reacts, our attack reacts are not as effective. So we do just set up these weird lines where we go backstab with some pumps into CNC or into CNC again, and then because they don't have many ways to pitch as well, they're often just pitching these D-reacts to play a dagger, do something really, really low value and give you a free turn. And then when you've created some space, then you can actually go off. But so it's just a way to make a lot of space, and particularly when we've got go again on the backstab and you can just go backstab pump into CNC, you're still doing 12 and they've got no D-react, so they've actually got to start blocking with cards that they don't want to save life.
Or they can't.
Which is pretty awkward. Yeah, or they can't. Yeah.
Yep, I can confirm. Sometimes you just can't. Let's move on to the value package. I think this, you talked about the damage that this deck can do, and kind of, there's a lot of things in this deck that have very fair numbers on them to an extent, but we're starting to get into some of the things that have a little bit less fair numbers on them. First of all, let's start with the value package. What does value package mean to you? What does Leave No Witnesses do for you? What does Orb Weaver Spinneret do for you?
Yeah, I mean, Leave No Witnesses just makes your codex the most value card in the game, pretty much, right? Like you can block 9-player codex, and it's the value's kind of off the charts, right? You got a 4 on-hit kill arsenal, prevent weapons from everyone. It's and draw a card basically. So that just makes your codex kind of insane. Your All Weaver Spinneret as well is in a similar sort of boat. It essentially offers 4 off a card, but importantly, it also allows you to get a weapon for 1 pitch, which means it allows you to start doing stuff like attack with a weapon into CNC, 7 off 2 cards. The just flicking every turn, like continually flicking, just to get them lower and lower in life total, especially at the end of the game, is really good. Into Enigma, it's just awesome. You have continual ways to just clear auras and make sure you're pressuring when they pull out a Mirage. So there's all sorts of reasons why those cards are good.
Yeah. Combo packages. This When I first heard about this deck you're playing, and Toxicity, of course, is the card that came to mind. I was like, okay, we're flicking daggers, we're toxicitying, but you guys actually have a lot of different sort of combo packages in this deck. It's not just one straightforward way of dealing a chunk of damage. And I looked at this list, I was like, yeah, you've got a lot of, like we said, cards with really fair numbers on them. But we're going to start to get into these 3 packages which have cards that do not have fair numbers on them, or at least they don't do fair numbers, and they don't allow opponents to necessarily interact. So talk to me about this first combo package, which you've got down here as Kiss of Death, Spike with Blood Rot, Toxicity, Tarantula Toxin, and of course, the Flick Knives.
Yeah, so I mean, this was probably the main reason we wanted to play the deck, because this interaction is just so cool, and there's no other way that you can really consistently do this turn after turn on any other deck, because the unconditional go again means you can just play Toxicity, Kiss of Death, and you can always follow up with an attack afterwards, regardless of what your opponent does. Kiss of Death, when it hits, they lose 1 life. It's also a dagger, so you can flick the Kiss of Death, meaning that if you play a Toxicity on your Kiss of Death and play any attack afterwards, you flick it, it does 6 damage, along with the additional 4 you'll get from it hitting. So Toxicity, Kiss of Death is just an insane card, like in general, right? Like it offers 4, it's 3 on hit 1, and then you get a free flick out of it. So it just offers 5 off that card, like before you do anything stupid with it. Putting a Toxicity on it is just insane. Spark with Blood Rot does the same thing. It's also part of the reason we play Tunic actually over any other chest. It's really awkward to play Kiss of Death in Spike of Blood Rot if you've got Bloodstained Tunic, because you just can't. We don't really have enough pitch in the deck, so it allows you to actually Kiss of Death, use a Tunic counter, play a Spike with Blood Rot, and then go into Stealth, which allows you to again get two Blood Rots onto them, which is pretty awesome. Tarantula Toxin is just like a 6-point card onto Kiss of Death as well. For whatever reason, they just felt like it wasn't strong enough, so they just put this other insane card with it. And if you ever draw the combo of Kiss of Death, Toxicity, and Tarantula Toxin in the same hand, you basically win the game. Like it's just so hard for your opponent to defend that and not take a bunch of life. And even if they do manage to defend it, they're still going to take a bunch of life because you get the flick.
What's that kind of damage output like on those kind of high end turns of Kiss of Death, Toxicity in this Kiss package?
So you got it's essentially the Kiss ends up being 9 once you include the Tarantula Toxin, Toxicity. 10. Toxicity is another 4. That's 14 into another Stealth, which is 3. You flick it for another 6. So that's 9. So that's like 19 off 4. Just bad.
It's pretty hard to interact with as well. It's not just it's not a like a 19 you see from other decks. It's a very hard to interact with 19. So yeah. Let's go to the second combo package, which I guess I'm going to call the Mantle of Agony package. Talk to me about this package, which is take out the Mantle and Bonds of Agony, just a 2-card combo here, and just explain how it works.
Yeah, so the best Bonds of Agony you can play is one where you don't play Bonds of Agony, because your opponent doesn't know that it's going to be a Bonds of Agony. So the basic idea is you just play any old Stealth. It can be a 1 power card, any power card. It's just so inconspicuous.
Yeah.
And you flick Knives, which is 1 chain link. So you flick your dagger, go into take the Mantle, into another pump, into a Bonds of Agony. It's now coming in for 10 with an on-hit, strip any card from your hand. So it's just the sheer fact that you can do it off nothing, and your opponent has to respect almost any Stealth card when you've got a dagger up and 3 cards in hand, and sometimes they just get completely blown out of it. There's been times where, at least if someone plays a bonds, you kind of know if they're gonna strip 2 cards, maybe block with one of the cards, but sometimes you can just strip 2 cards out of the hand and do all. It's pretty ridiculous when that happens. So yeah, that's sort of combo number 2, and that's the main reason why we've got the mark package in the deck, because that interaction is just so strong.
How often are you using your arsenal to set up these kind of combos? Is this something you're actively looking towards playing in most of your games, or is it more a case of there's just so many different ones that you often kind of just draw them naturally? Like, would you arsenal and take up the mantle if you already have a bonds in arsenal? I guess that one's a little bit more straightforward, but for instance, maybe on the last one, would you arsenal a Kiss of Death or a Toxicity until you found the right hand for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can afford to do that a little bit. You do need to be a bit careful arsenaling the wrong card. Like, arsenaling something like a Spike with Bloodrot or a CNC can be really bad in the deck. You do draw hands where you just don't have a stealth in hand. So often you actually want to try and prioritize a stealth and arsenal if you can. A three stealth hand is fine. You just play 2 out and arsenal the other one a lot of the time, because you just want to be able to play consistently back at them if you can, or you just don't have an arsenal again. So if you do brick, you can kind of block and then put something in there. Kiss of Death, yeah, you really do try and arsenal it if you can, because the interaction is so powerful against decks that are going to interact with you, like especially assassins. You're just never going to get to play it out. It's very unlikely that you'll get to play it out with the combo. Unless you get lucky. So you do try and do it, but it's not like you aim to do it. You can stack the combos as well. So one of the really the cool ones actually is at the end of the game, if you've got a Toxicity and a Codex, you can just do a 2-card Kiss of Death turn if you've got a Chalakera as well. So you play you block with your hand, you play the Toxicity, Codex out a Kiss of Death, attack with it, tunic your weapon.
Yeah,
you've got a 6 damage. Basically unpreventable.
Yeah.
6 life. Yeah, exactly. And it's also hitting for 3 as well, so they have to block it too. So there's like all sorts of cool stuff like that you can do there too.
Nice, love it. Let's go to package number 3, Art of Desire Mind, Justin Nick, Persuasive Prognosis. I'm going to guess this is just playing a Justin Nick on these cards.
Oh, it's just, so the reason I put that as another combo package is we actually had Justin Nick decided out of the deck a lot of the time, and so basically the deck kind of plays 2 ways. You either bring in Justin Nick in Art of Desire Mind, or you play Defense Reacts. And so the basic idea behind that is we're only running actually 6 if you include Prog. There's only 6 main deck 1 power cards, and so basically against any Mysteria, Mystic deck, that's when you bring it in, because you now have 9 powerful targets for Justin Nick. Like, because we have generic Go Again. Art of Desire Mind is just off Justin Nick.
Yeah,
it banishes the from top of the deck often. So just draw 2, gain 2 life, Go Again for 6 damage. Like, it kind of ends up being pretty insane, alongside Prog also being good, and Bonds of Agony as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's go to, you've got some additional attack reactions here in the form of Shred and Razor's Edge. Shred, I think, just continues to pay its weight in these assassin decks, especially these ones that look to have these on-hit effects and set up these kind of bigger 5-card turns, I think. Any consideration for anything that isn't named Shred or Razor's Edge, or these are just the 2 best ones to be playing?
We did think of some other ones. We did consider some other ones in the deck. So for a while we were playing Shred Red, which was an interesting one as well. The other ones we tried Shred Blue as well, actually for a while, but I think we landed on yellow mostly because a lot of the time when we're pitching it's just for CNC anyway. Yeah. So you can kind of do that off the yellow and it's fine. And then the 3 block 3 attack is kind of, it's just a really all-rounder card. Like, it just does everything kind of okay. Razor's Edge is an interesting one as well. Your attack reacts are sort of like, they're actually sometimes the worst cards in your deck. A lot of the time you kind of just want to go stealth in some matchups, like Syndra in particular. You probably just block with it. You want to save life. You want to prevent mass triggers, so you just block with the reacts, and you just go stealth into stealth because your on hits are so good. Yeah. You don't really need to get any more than that. If you're forcing them to block with 2 cards, it's good. It also does stuff like turn off Wax On. Like, Wax On for 5 is just brutal if you've kept a Razor's Edge. Whereas if you just go stealth into stealth, it's just blocking one card. So it sort of balances those kind of D-Reacts in their deck as well in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. You've got two final, I guess, shells or sideboard configurations for different options. You spoke about that, Josinic, Prog Plan, but you have this other kind of two plug and play pieces. So you have Inertia Trap and Shelter from the Storm. I guess a bit of a defense reaction package. When are you playing this? What is this for?
Yeah, so I mean, this is for when you've got the Helm normally for Inertia Trap. So if you're playing into a Rune Blade, you probably take that out because you're not gonna randomly roll into a six, so you don't need it in there. Um, so and then Shelter the Storm is just Shelter from the Storm, sorry, is just so good into like decks like Syndra. You block a breakpoint, or you're blocking some Flick Knives from daggers to prevent Mask on a turn. You kind of just need a little bit of additional value to get over them a lot of the time. There's some arguments to try and put some more of those types of cards in, but you also don't really want to like clog your deck up with too much
Diluted.
junk. You do want it to be pretty streamlined. There's a lot of stuff going on. As I say, you need 27 stealth, 15 attack rates in the deck, and the rest of it, you've only got so many spots. The other sideboard plan there with Poison the Well, pick up the point in Schism. Poison the Well, obviously, into a lot of these decks playing CYB, and just having one in there just keeps them honest. I think if they see it early, they're like, well, how many do you have? I don't actually know if you've got one, if you've got three. It just makes their turns a little bit more awkward sometimes, and then sometimes you get the big blowout like I did against Nick Butcher and crushed this whole turn with it, which was pretty funny. Schism of Chaos is like just probably one of the highest value fables they've printed so far, right? Like you come in with a dagger, you get the on hit, you get an Arsenal card out of it a lot of the time. I think probably like 80% of the time you get a free Arsenal card out of it. And with this deck playing so many reds, it's almost always a good Arsenal. Like there's very few cards you don't want to see in your Arsenal. Schism's one of them, but you've pitched that, so that's fine. It's not going to go there when you play it. So it's just a really good way to get additional value in some of those matchups where you're trying to grind and every last card can kind of count. Pick up the point is just probably the best go again card out at the moment. Like it's essentially worth 4, and it's often off two points, so it's getting really good into Enigma and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and just another way to get that retrieve, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
you don't really have a lot of ways to get like you were saying before, that flicking the dagger it's not a turn-to-turn thing. It's a for-use thing, right, to get the mark package.
That's
Which
right.
makes it makes a lot of sense. It's what I find quite interesting about, I guess, Schism in particular is this deck has such a dichotomy between the opponent wanting to have an arsenal and the opponent not wanting to have an arsenal. You have backstabs and CNCs, but you also have codex, and you have things where you do want to have a defense reaction to stop just a nick turns or spike with blood rot turns, but then you also have the Schism. So it's quite a I think this deck is really difficult to play against, I think, and that's I do think on the weekend in particular that was something that really I think it gave you guys a good solid boost as well. Was just the level of difficulty to play against this deck, because it is challenging to know when to Arsenal, when to hold cards, when to not.
Yeah. Oh, it's not. It's definitely not easy. It's not easy. It's not that easy to play in some matchups as well. Like you can have the wrong plan, and it can really affect how much your win percent goes up and down. Knowing when to block and when to keep your hand is really important. And we struggled with it for a lot. We did test it quite a bit, but we just felt that even though we weren't playing it perfectly, that we would play it better than people would play into it because of how unfamiliar they were with the deck.
Yeah, I love that
and we did get a
philosophy.
lot of value points out of that.
Yeah,
Across the tournament.
I'm a big fan of that philosophy. I want to end this up. I guess wrap it up, and I guess we're in the midst of Road to National season. 2 weeks to go. Viserai looks like it may or may not hold on for this coming week, but probably won't be around for maybe the final week, or it definitely won't be after Road to National season. Things are going to change up. So my last question for you: any changes you make to the deck list, and bearing in mind whether those are changes pre-Viserai going or post-Viserai going, with people looking to potentially take your Arakni slip through the crack deck to a Road to Nationals this coming next weekend or next.
Yeah, I think the couple of cards that we cut that we would definitely consider putting back in were around Red Isolate and Red Wither. So Red Wither's an interesting one. Like we had it in for a while, but the new Syndralists weren't really attacking with daggers, and that was the one matchup where we thought it was really going to shine. So that kind of fell to the side. So depending on your what you're facing against, that would be one that we'd definitely consider. You could consider some more D-Reacts. If that's not too many more, but a couple more if you really feel you need the extra value in some of those aggressive matchups. Isolate was probably the other interesting one. So isolate red when you use a mantle on an isolate, if they're blocked and they react with the defense react, and then you play the isolate, it actually fizzles the defense react. So there's also some really interesting ways that can be pretty advantageous in some matchups in some formats where you've got a lot of people playing D-Reacts. Fortunately, that doesn't work with backstab because of the way the timing works, but it's a really cool interaction, and that's why we were on it originally. So I think those two cards would definitely be considered. Pain in the backside is an interesting one that people have said a lot about, and we talked about earlier. I mean, I probably still wouldn't play it, but it's again fits that. If you really need some additional go wide against particular decks, like if Enigma is maybe really potent in your meta game, then you might want something like Pain in the backside there too.
Yeah, cool. Well, Jason, again, congratulations on the result, and to yourself, Isaac, and Koi. Just awesome to see this deck come out on the weekend. It was cool to watch, cool to see you guys. I mean, it was not so cool to lose to it, but it was cool to watch you guys otherwise. I do want to say, just again, a big thank you. And, where can people find you if they want to track you down? Where will they see you? You're a part-timer these days. We see you sometimes. Maybe you've got another PTI again after burning all your PTIs previously. So, we're going to see you at an event in the future. What's Jasin Long about? Where can we find him?
Oh well, it's actually a team PTR where we did a bit of a share with the tournament. We all came on this random deck, and we kind of we played it as a bit of a team. So we did a bit of a pride share. I was pretty happy about that day one. Not quite as happy about that at the end of day two, but it's still all good. It's we had such a blast with the deck that it was pretty fun. Where am I? I'm based in Christchurch. I got 2 kids now, so it makes it a bit hard for me to get around to too many events. But I'll probably play nationals again this year if I can. Hopefully. I'm not sure about the APAC PT. We'll see how things go. But yeah, probably at the very least nationals. And then maybe some stuff into the future. Do just want to do a quick shout out to the boys though. Koi and Isaac. Thanks heaps for it was just such a blast testing, and the whole weekend there were so many crazy things that happened, like Koi's car breaking down the night before and having to push start it to pick up cards for the event. All this kind of funny stuff that just fed into the whole thing. So thanks heaps to them for the testing. We made a whole bunch of changes as well that at last minute through. It was a complete team deck. It wasn't just one person. Playing it and building it, and then the other 2 playing it. We weren't even playing just the Nick and that last combo package 2 days beforehand. So there's all sorts of stuff there that we changed and tweaked. So it was really cool to have a team deck like that perform so well. But not just me, but everyone.
Cool. Well, thank you again, and thank you for watching this video, checking out this Arakni slip through the cracks deck tech. Until next time, see you in the next video.